Baltimore Ravens' worst nightmares became true in week 6 as they lost to the Los Angeles Rams and enter their bye week at 1-5. And Zay Flowers is currently being ripped for a post-game move that honestly shouldn't have happened. We talk about that and so much more coming up on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Kevin Ostreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much for being here on this Monday edition of the show, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. And thank you out there to all the everydayers, the first-time listeners. If you're somewhere in the middle, thank you as well. We have 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage and content, wins, losses, ties, anytime. We got you covered here over on Locked On Ravens. We have a jam-packed episode today. Obviously, the Ravens, they lost to the Rams in week 6. They enter their bye week at 1-5. It's something we're going to talk about throughout the entire course of this week. I've already mentioned it twice in the first minute of the show, but we're going to dive into one, Zay Flowers being ripped for a post-game move that honestly shouldn't have happened. Second segment, we'll dive into Lamar Jackson's value finally being exposed for the NFL world to see. And then finally, we'll get into a little bit more of a Ravens and Rams recap from week number 6, what happened, what went wrong, and where the Ravens need to go from here. So a lot of stuff coming your way here today on the show. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward, Mazda Move and Be Moved. Look, the Ravens in this game in week 6, 17-3. Defense only allowing 17 points. They'd allowed 37 in 4 of their first 5 games, or at least 37 plus. So that was a step up. I thought early on we saw good play from the offensive line and good play from the defense. But unfortunately, as the game went on, that play slipped, and the Ravens slipped to, what's the record? I'll say it again, 1-5. So let's just talk about first the messaging here, the accountability factor, because I know a lot of people right now are still upset with John Harbaugh's messaging, which was essentially, hey, we can do this, which in itself you think is okay, but at the same time, it just, it feels like the same message over and over again. You want a team that has positivity. You want a team that's not giving up. The Ravens certainly aren't, but, that messaging itself, people are getting tired of, it feels like, from John Harbaugh. But the thing that has a lot of people upset right now, is not all John Harbaugh. Zay Flowers right now is someone who is under the microscope in terms of a post-game move that he made. And has a lot of the Ravens faithful upset about it. And, frankly, it's a move that shouldn't have happened in the first place. So Zay Flowers, obviously, we know he had a really tough game on Sunday, right? There are no ifs, ands, or buts about that. And it's tough. You hate to see it be that way, but, Zay he was only credited for 1 fumble. The other fumble was credited to Cooper Rush on the end around, but essentially he was involved in 2 critical fumbles in the game. Didn't really do a ton receiving wise, just 6 receptions for 46 yards on 10 targets. But after the game, Zay Flowers was not in the locker room. He had left the locker room before the media was allowed in, and he did not speak after the Ravens losses to the Chiefs or the Texans either. And again, multiple media members have blasted Zay Flowers over this. Obviously, the fan base has blasted Zay Flowers over this. And to me, this is a bad look for Zay. I understand, he was probably in no mood to talk to the media. He probably feels responsible in a way for what happened in this game. I understand. You could tell on the field that Zay was upset. He was also playing through an injury. I get all the circumstances, but in reality, Zay's teammates went up there and answered questions. They spoke to the media in the locker room. And, a lot of people are essentially saying, why does Zay not have to do that? And this is not the first time we've heard of something like this. Obviously, multiple reporters from the Baltimore Banner have written on this and others within the media as well. We've talked about it on the show where it just feels like there was a lack of accountability. There was an article in the Banner after the game, and in the article, and again, be sure you go check out the Banner's coverage of, everything that went on in the game. But essentially in the article, it was said, quote, a locker room already struggling with questions of leadership and accountability continues to lack both. Gianna Hahn put out an article a couple weeks ago that we talked about of Roquan Smith leaving the locker room before the media. He's done that a couple times after tough losses. Marlon Humphrey, he left the locker room, and all of that. And again, we know the policies with injured players and this and that and the other, but Zay was not necessarily injured in the game. There's different policies there. Zay could have easily stayed behind, spoken to the media, and he would have been asked. He could have, I don't know. I mean, I guess if he didn't want to speak to them, what's a better look? Both aren't good, between leaving before they get in and just declining outright to speak. And again, like it's Zay's decision. Like, I understand that. He's a young guy, and I genuinely believe that Zay Flowers is a good guy. Like, I do. I think that, this to me probably was just in moment of frustration, game of frustration. The problem is that we're seeing this behavior within the organization too much this season, whether it comes from Harbaugh at the top in certain spots or some of the players, some of the leaders on this team. And that's where my messaging the whole season has been about, on the field stuff. Yeah, we can talk about that. But if the off-field stuff continues to be like this, and guys are ducking media or, sending the wrong messages or, doing all this, they're not going to win that way. You need to get all that stuff sorted and straightened out. And, right now I'm only reporting and hearing and talking about what we know right now. So maybe there was another circumstance and they had to leave. I don't know. But the look right now, without any information and, kind of knowing what we know, is not a good one. And, I'm not sure if there was another circumstance here, but the fact that this is something that was already reported on, that, hey, Zay left the locker room a couple weeks ago before the media came in, and now he did it again and he was involved. Like, Zay was a big part of this game. And I get it. Like, answering questions after a loss and, kind of having to take that accountability, it's not fun. It's no one would have fun doing that, right? But Zay's teammates stood up there and answered questions and, talk about the state of the team and what's went wrong and what they need to figure out, what they need to do. And Zay's someone who is trying to take on a bigger leadership role. This is not something that reflects that. So it was definitely disappointing to hear about that. I know a lot of the fan base is disappointed in it. And, in a game where some things did look improved, look, the turnovers were bad. Zay being involved in those were bad. I understand and I get it. And the Ravens offense really couldn't do much of anything. It was an abysmal offensive game. Still, you have to answer. I mean, look, Rashad Bateman goes and takes full accountability for his mistake after the game, or at least, a couple days after. So maybe we'll hear that from Zay after the bye week, or maybe they'll have availability this week during the bye. I'm not sure. But again, it is the responsibility of a leader. We see Lamar do it every week, right, when he's healthy, and some of these other guys too. So that's why it's concerning to me with some of the stuff that's going on in that locker room. And again, I'm not in that locker room. I don't know what's going on in there. All I can kind of talk about it is what's being reported on and what you can kind of see on the field and some of the body language stuff. The body language was better on Sunday than it was the past couple of weeks. Maybe that was because it wasn't an absolute blowout. But then there are other things about, like, did this Ravens team take their foot off the gas in this game when they had an opportunity? I'm not saying it was likely they're going to win the game, but they were still in this game late, and they decided to kind of lose their sense of urgency. And I'm not saying that's a player thing. It was more on the coaches, but, that coaching mentality does rub off on the players. It starts with the coaches. I think it's a pretty big indictment on what's going on in that locker room right now and in that organization right now. There are a lot of deep-rooted problems. And we can talk about all the on-field stuff all we want to, but if that stuff is not fixed first, about off-field and messaging and leadership and accountability, nothing is going to change. Nothing is going to change. And so that, to me, is, again, I'm not trying to pin everything that's going on Zay Flowers. I don't think it was the right decision for Zay to leave. I think that he should have stayed and answered questions, assuming there was nothing else going on, right? That's my opinion on that. And I think that everybody, when Roquan was exposed for this and Marlon and some of those other guys, I had the same conversation. Even Zay was in that conversation the first time. And the fact that he did it again kind of shows, hey, what are we doing here? There has to be, I'm not saying guys haven't taken accountability on the team or anything like that. They have. I'm not saying that it's been none, but it is unfortunate how some of this has unfolded and come out in these reports and the news about guys leaving. All that I think needs to be fixed because at the end of the day, you're a team and everybody on the team needs to be accountable and responsible. And, some guys are taking that role and sitting up in front of the media and answering those questions. And other guys, unfortunately, have not taken on that same challenge. So hopefully it changes over the course of the season. But again, like I'll tell you on social media, I'm reading up and down. A lot of this fan base right now very upset at Zay Flowers for that decision. And the fact that it's happened multiple times is something that I think needs to be fixed, or else, again, the play on the field, that's something that is obviously, it's important to execute on the field. It's how you win or lose games. But the mentality that you have going into those games and, how guys are accepting their roles, all that also has a really, really big factor. And, what Zay did is not what a leader does. I think Zay has become a leader, but this is not what a leader does. So I'm hoping that can all get figured out and maybe Zay says something about it. We shall see. But again, I want to reiterate, Zay, I do think is a good dude and someone that just cares. He's competitive. And that to me is, I think, what it is. Like, I believe that this was just probably moments of frustration for him. But, if that is the case, you kind of got to push that frustration down, or not even do that. Just kind of, be honest and use that frustration in your answers, but use it obviously in a way that is constructive, I guess. So coming up in the second part of the show, we'll talk about the Ravens. Lamar's value to them has been finally exposed. So be sure to stay tuned. We got plenty coming your way here on Locked On Ravens. First, this show was brought to you by Mizzen in Maine. The saying, look good, feel good. The problem is that most dress clothes only check one of those boxes. They look sharp, but feel stiff, hot, and high maintenance. That's why there's Mizzen in Maine. Mizzen in Maine makes classic menswear with performance fabrics, so it's effortless to look sharp and feel comfortable. They actually invented the performance fabric dress shirt over 10 years ago. And they've perfected it ever since. Now, I've worn Mizzen in Maine forever. My family has too, and I could not recommend it enough. Their shirts are stretchy, moisture wicking, wrinkle resistant, machine washable. There's no ironing and no dry cleaning. Plus, I love that you can go from the office to dinner or even out on the golf course and still feel comfortable all day. It's the feel of athletic wear, but the look of professional menswear. Right now, Mizzen in Maine is offering our listeners 20% off your first purchase at mizzeninmaine.com with promo code LOCKEDONNFL20. That's Mizzen, spelled M-I-Z-Z-E-N, and Maine, M-A-I-N.com. Promo code LOCKEDONNFL20 for 20% off. And if you'd rather shop in person, you can find Mizzen in Maine stores in select states. And this episode is brought to you by Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward, John Jenkins having a big turnover, a strip sack on Matthew Stafford early in this game. The Ravens defense has been struggling to force turnovers, struggling to get momentum, but John Jenkins coming in on a one-year deal. He's played incredible football for them. And look, the defense has been a rough spot for the Ravens, yes, but this was a good moment in this game that I think the Ravens can use into their bye week and coming out of it. And that's something that the defense can take with a positive and have a positive outlook heading into the second part of their season. And that will hopefully keep them and the fan base moving forward. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Moving along on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still here with you on this Monday edition of the show. Unfortunately, not a victory Monday for the Ravens as they fall to the Rams 17-3 in week number 6. Really rough game for the offense. Defense was better, but still had some rough moments in there as well. We'll dive into everything when it comes to the Ravens and Rams game in the final part of the show, do a little recap and again, look at that a little bit more on a deeper perspective. But we're going to talk about Lamar Jackson here in the second part of the show and his true value to this team. So be sure to hit the like and subscribe button in video form and follow along in audio form for 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage. We have obviously the regular show here Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. Eastern time. We have bonus episodes on the weekends when there are headlines. We got during game days, we got the Locked On Ravens watch-alongs. We got the instant reaction shows. We have instant reaction shows to big news as well. Locked On Ravens squad show twice per week, Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, of course, after games. So we got so much Ravens content and coverage here for you on Locked On Ravens. But Lamar Jackson, his true value was exposed on Sunday. And I think the NFL world might have took them a while. Everybody in Baltimore knew it, but I think people are waking up here to how valuable Lamar Jackson is to this Ravens team. The Ravens without Lamar Jackson over the course of the team's history with Lamar Jackson on the team, they are 4-11 without Lamar Jackson all time. They have lost their last 5 games when Lamar Jackson has not played for them. The last game that they won was against the Falcons on December 24th, 2022. Since then, the Ravens have not won a game with Lamar out. And you can even just boil it down to this season in general, right? Not even just the whole view, but let's just look at this season. The Ravens, in the 2 games Lamar Jackson has not played, are only averaging 6.5 points per game without Lamar Jackson. He makes this offense, he makes this team. This team without Lamar Jackson is just not good. And I'm honestly shocked by it a little bit. Not that the Ravens aren't good without Lamar. I mean, I get that. That's not shocking at all. But I'm disappointed in the roster, for being honest. Like I'll say it straight up. I thought the roster was better than it is. But, clearly there are major holes that Lamar Jackson covers up for. And I knew there were. I just didn't know that they were that big, at least not compared to what I thought that they were. Like Lamar, seriously, like offensive line play, they were bad to start the season, but man, they weren't this bad with Lamar in there. You know why? Because Lamar Jackson's able to mask that up with his ability to escape out of the pocket, make something happen, and he masks bad offensive line play. We knew that part. I'm just like, man, the guard position is not good for Baltimore. Lamar masks that. But I think the Ravens guard spots right now might be one of the worst in the NFL with Daniel Falele and Andrew Voorhees, right? Defensively, I mean, Lamar's kept this team in games by putting them in shootouts. And, a defense that goes and gives up 37 points or however many points, 30-plus points, Lamar Jackson is there continuously driving this offense down the field with how good he is. And the NFL world, I think, woke up to that. And I think a lot of people in Baltimore who already knew that are trying to drive that point home. I mean, look, I've said this for years, and I know a lot of other people in Baltimore have too. Maybe if you're watching or listening today, you've said it as well. I think Lamar Jackson is the most valuable player in the league. And to me, it's not really close. Like, again, you can make the argument with all quarterbacks, star quarterbacks in their team. So Lamar, Josh Allen, Mahomes, Burrow, like the whole 9 yards. You can make arguments that, oh man, like, yeah, if those teams lose those quarterbacks, they're done. They're not doing anything, which, yes, is true. But we see firsthand here how many things Lamar Jackson covers up and the gravity that he has on the football field. Teams aren't scared of Cooper Rush the way they're scared of Lamar Jackson, not even close. And no one would expect that to be the case. But what Lamar brings to the table, both with his arm and with his legs, is not able to be replicated. And the fact that Cooper can't do that in any way, again, I had no problem, just a very side note here for a second. I had no problem with the Ravens throwing extra money at a backup quarterback, right? That to me was fine. You want to get a higher quality backup in here that they've had over recent seasons, that's fine. But guess what? They're back to square one now at that position because Tyler Huntley is probably going to be their guy moving forward. Cooper Rush, I don't think is going to play another snap in Baltimore. And Cooper's going to get cut at the end of this season. I don't think there's any guaranteed money on his deal. So now you're just back to where you started because the quarterback you brought in doesn't do the things Lamar does. And that, to me, I thought was weird. And I always thought, like, yeah, okay, great. You're paying the backup quarterback. Want to give some money there. That's awesome. Like, Cooper's regardless one of the higher quality backups in the league. But in this offense, it was always kind of questionable. And I was kind of thinking, like, yeah, okay, like maybe the play. But here we are with the whole conversation about backup quarterbacks. Hey, you just got to keep the season afloat. And Cooper Rush failed to do so. And now Lamar Jackson ideally will come back in week 7, but unfortunately, it will be to a team that is 1-5 and has to scrape and claw for their football lives moving forward. So, I mean, the world sees it. The world sees it now, I think, how valuable Lamar Jackson is. And look, I mentioned the Ravens offense, 13 points in 2 weeks without Lamar. That's 6.5 per game. With Lamar Jackson, they've scored 131 points in 4 games. And if you want another stat, because who doesn't want another stat on the Ravens without Lamar Jackson? Without Lamar, the Ravens have not scored more than 17 points in each of those 5 games that they have lost in a row. They have 13, 16, 10, 10, 3. Those are the amounts of points the Ravens have in those games without Lamar Jackson. And the highest point total they've scored without Lamar over the course of the franchise history is 30 points. It was 30 points. But you're generally hovering in that like 10 to 20 range, sometimes going over 21. This team badly needs Lamar Jackson, much like a lot of teams need their star quarterbacks, right? But the way that this roster was constructed, it wasn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but the NFL world is seeing it now. How many holes Lamar Jackson fills on this Ravens team that otherwise, you look at this roster and kind of be like, oh, that's really bad. Why is that the case? Why was it built this way? Well, Lamar Jackson, he masks a lot of that. And for a team that has Super Bowl aspirations coming into the season, their season now is in a dire situation. So coming up in the final part of the show, we will be diving into a little bit of a Ravens and Rams recap, what happened and where the Ravens need to make changes during their bye week. So be sure to stay tuned. Plenty coming your way on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Need parts for a project fast? Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. The part finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. And their Trademaster perks like priority shipping and dedicated support make the whole process smoother. Join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHNFL5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. And the show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play off, build parlays, try player props, and even follow the live lines during games. Makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. And for this Ravens and Rams game, obviously, maybe you had a Tyler Higbee anytime touchdown. You're probably living large over on FanDuel with that. The Rams coming into this game on FanDuel were 7-point road favorites. So they certainly living large on FanDuel with that one as well. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Continuing on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Ostreicher still here with you on this Monday. Appreciate everybody again for being here, and I really appreciate everybody being here after a loss. I know how tough it can be to listen to content, consume content, watch content after your favorite team loses. I've been there. It's not fun to talk about when they lose, obviously, but we're here doing it each and every single day, whether win, lose, tie, the whole 9 yards, or the good, the bad, the ugly. We're here for you on Locked On Ravens. So thank you for all the support. Again, we have 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage for you here on the show, whether you are a video watcher or an audio listener. Let's dive into this Ravens and Rams game a little bit here. It just felt like, honestly, the Ravens had opportunities in this game. It seemed like the Rams were gifting this game to Baltimore over and over and over again. And the Ravens they're like, no, it's all right. You keep it. We're good. We're okay. That's what it felt like. It felt like the Ravens just didn't want this game. I'm not saying it's a player effort thing. Not trying to say that. I don't believe that. I think the players played hard. But, it just felt like with Devontae Adams dropping the ball, Jordan Whittington dropping the ball, Rams penalties that wiped out Ravens turnovers, like Matthew Stafford missing throws, the Rams kicker looking abysmal in this game. Like, so many things happened where the Ravens could have capitalized. And they just did not. Obviously, I think the sequence everybody's talking about is that goal line sequence down by the 1 yard line. The Ravens 3 attempts to get it in from the 1, and they fail going into the half. They could have gone up 10-3 at the half. Instead, they lose 17-3. And that kind of encapsulates the game there. Again, I didn't love the play calls from Todd Monken. I didn't. If anything, I would have run one of those Mark Andrews sneaks, just one of them, not 2 in a row. You have Derrick Henry. You need to use Derrick Henry. You need to. On that first down play, Derrick Henry got 3 yards. I'd go to him again on second down. And then maybe if that doesn't work and you get back to the goal line, maybe you run the sneak on third down, or maybe you run the sneak on second down. That doesn't work. So you hand the ball off to Derrick on third and fourth down. The Ravens get too cute. They get too cute. And I think from that moment on, that sequence on, you could tell there was a vibe shift, because early on in the game, like, I thought the offensive line was playing well and opening up holes and getting to the second level. I thought the defense was doing really well, especially on early downs, to stop the Rams from getting themselves into second and third manageables. Like, I thought we saw positive trends, and it was overall like a better game than we've seen over the last 2 weeks. Like, there was improvement there, but again, the mistakes that the Rams made, the Ravens had to capitalize on a couple of them, and it just felt like they didn't want anything to do with it. And only putting up 3 points in this game, not great. DeAndre Hopkins saying that, yeah, bad football gets you to 1-5. Like, it just, right now, the Ravens, you think that things can't get worse, and then somehow they do. Now, I think, again, overall, it was a better step than we've seen over the last 2 weeks, right? Better defensively, only giving up 17 points and seeing some encouraging signs. They still have a lot to work on there. Zach Orr dropping everybody into coverage but 2 people on that fourth down play I did not agree with. That was a weird decision in itself. And, Kyron Williams getting a little Jonnu Smith on that catch there back in that 2019 playoff game, if you remember that. So, again, that didn't work, and Stafford just kind of sat back there and, found Kyron Williams down the field. But even still, we saw like the early down stuff for the Ravens was better in the first half, and particularly earlier in the game. Now, as the game went on, I think we saw the Ravens defense kind of falter and let up a little bit. But my problem with this game, and the one that I'm going to continue to scream from the mountaintops here, is I think the Ravens coaches gave up in this game, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. My hot take is that Todd Monken was way worse than Zach Orr in this game. Not that, I think the Ravens don't need to make a change with certain coordinators, but still, the Ravens, in my opinion, threw in the towel here in a game that they were still in. Sean McVay, again, another thing the Ravens didn't take advantage of. Sean McVay was terrible in this game, in my opinion. He did not kick a field goal. He must have just not trusted the kicker, because the kicker was terrible. He did not go up 3 possessions against this Ravens team to essentially all but ice the game. They go for it on fourth down from like the Ravens 6-yard line, and they don't get it. So the Ravens, they get the ball back with about 13 and a half minutes to go in the fourth quarter, down by 2 touchdowns. It's only 2 touchdowns. Tyler Huntley comes in the game for Cooper Rush, and the Ravens, every single play, are just running the play clock down to 5 seconds or below. And they take essentially like 9.5 minutes off the clock. And by the time that they go 4 and out, there are like 3 minutes left in the game or something like that. Like, it was ridiculous watching this team do that. And the fact that they did not get like some semblance of urgency, there was no urgency to win the game. You're down by 2 touchdowns. Is it likely you're going to win the game based off everything that's going on right now in the game? No, probably not. But you had a chance to. And that, to me, was the worst part of this game. It felt like the coaching staff gave up. It felt like they were just mailing it in. And whether the play calls were coming in slow or that was the call from the coaches, like, there was no urgency to hurry things up. I get it. 13 and a half minutes to go. You don't have to go crazy fast with that much time left, but then you get to 9 minutes. Up now there are 7 minutes. Up now there are 5. And that to me was ridiculous. I did not agree with that whatsoever. I thought it was awful time management by the Ravens. John Harbaugh burns 2 timeouts in the early part of the second quarter, leave them with 1 going into that final half sequence with Derrick Henry and everything. That to me was bad. I mean, the penalties were bad for the Ravens as well in this game. Untimely penalties across the board. Both teams had a lot of untimely penalties here. 7 for 80 for the Ravens, 6 for 40 for the Rams. But the Ravens, obviously, with their 3 turnovers, that's the story of the game here, where the Ravens with the Cooper Rush interception and, the Cooper/Zay fumble and the Zay fumble himself. I mean, that's where the game was lost as well. And it's unfortunate because, again, like, I thought the Ravens ran the ball well early. Like, it was just run. Derrick Henry. The Rams couldn't stop it. Derrick averaged 5.1 yards per carry in this game, and he had 18 carries at the half. He finished the game with 24. They just went away with it. They got too cute. And I feel like once the Rams scored on that opening third quarter possession, the Ravens, they got in their head, like, man, we're going to have to, catch up this and catch up that. We're not going to need it. And then it got in their own head, and it just continues to be that way. And it's really, really unfortunate. So look, I think the Ravens do need to make changes here. I think they do. I would probably move on from Zach Orr or Todd Monken at this point, one of the two. I think Orr is probably more likely. But John Harbaugh after the game said that he doesn't feel like coaching changes, would help. So I don't know. Like, I'm not sure that they're actually going to. I thought that, if they lost this game, they would, but maybe the better defensive performance saved Zach Orr's job. I'm not sure. Like he said, quote, "I don't really have plans to do that. No, I don't think there are any obvious move there that would make us better." He said, "I don't know why that always comes up, really. I guess maybe it's part of it, but I love our guys. They work hard, and I think they're doing a good job of coaching. I'm sure they want some things back too. Certainly we can do things better." So I don't know about all that, but seems like Harbaugh's not in any rush to make a coaching change. I would make changes on the offensive line as well. I think Daniel Faalele needs to be benched. I think Andrew Voorhees needs to be benched. I think that Joe Nobu needs to be cut, and they need to just get guys healthy because it's terrible right now in that offensive line. And, I think that they have to do something on an outside linebacker. Tavius Robinson broke his foot. That's a multi-month absence, and that's a really big loss for them after trading away at Afeowe. So now your pass rush room, it is Mike Green, Kyle Van Noy, and David Ajabo alongside, maybe whenever Adisa Isaac comes back, some guys from the practice squad. So you got to do something there. I think, we just got to see a lot from this team because is the season over? No, it's not. Like, it looks bleak. It looks dire right now, but the Ravens do have a schedule that opens up. They have opportunities. They're getting healthy. John Harbaugh saying that ideally Lamar and Roquan Smith are back. Hopefully Patrick Ricard is back as well. So they're getting healthy. They can go on a run. But again, as we said in the first part of the show, the whole Zay and leaving the locker room before the media gets in there and all that, ducking that, the accountability factor and the leadership factor for some of this, whether it's the coaching staff, like I think the coaching messaging, all that, accountability from some of these guys, it needs to change or else nothing's going anywhere here this season. So that's all I have for you here today on Locked On Ravens. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. On the way out, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button in video form and follow along in audio form for 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage. And be sure to turn notifications on to know when we drop new content. So be sure to stay tuned for all that we have in store for you. I'll see you right back here soon on Locked On Ravens.